Last summer, after the crowds left, 5 strangers returned to the woods to uncover the truth. But one of them has a secret that will unlock the curse.
You know, if you don't believe in the Blair Witch, then why the hell did you bother to come?
I thought the movie was cool.
This fall, just in time for Halloween, the witch is back.
All right, here we go. Now shit gets real. Okay. Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2. I mean, I don't even, right away, why not Blair Witch 2, Book of Shadows? But, whatever. That's my first critique. I actually picked up this movie at the dollar store. Not because I wanted to see it again, although I now have watched it 1.5 more times. But because it was like $1 and it had a commentary from director Joe Berlinger, who's won Academy Awards for doing documentaries on people who were wrongly convicted of ritual satanic murders. And there's apparently a fairly legitimate filmmaker in everything not having to do with Blair Witch. But I wanted to hear his commentary, because I wanted him to justify this to me. I wanted him to say that he had a plan and that it made sense to at least him.
Yeah, and as chance would have it, it was recorded right before the Blair Witch came out, and everybody, the world told him what they thought of Blair Witch 2, which was...
Yeah, I think this is pretty much universally derided. I've heard exactly one person say anything vaguely positive about this movie.
I believe it swept the Razzies.
Wow.
Yeah.
It deserved to, because the cast on whole is pretty much appalling.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, one of the Razzies it won for was Worst Couple.
Yes.
And the basis on which it won that was pick any 2 people
Yes.
from the cast.
This is mean, and we're getting ahead of ourselves. But,
We are.
I mean, I've said before that this podcast is not all about hate. But this particular episode has some hate to it. I mean, but we're focusing on this topic. The original Blair Witch Project, okay? A found footage film. First of all, this is not found footage at all. There's a bit of faux documentary at the beginning, but once the opening credits happen, this is a straight-up movie. They took pains to establish a world and a mythos of the Blair Witch, and they asked the viewer's imagination to do all of the work. Now, I realize that the original Blair Witch Project is a very divisive film. People seem to either really love it or really hate it. I'm in the really love it category.
As am I.
Yeah, of course, the following Halloween, after the almost $200 million making Blair Witch, they want another Blair Witch movie. And they hired this guy, Joe Berlinger, to do it. And as we discussed when we watched this movie together, I think that the fatal flaw was they just hired the wrong dude to make this movie.
Well,
what did you think of Book of Shadows, brother?
I mean, it's exactly right. There's a point in there where, in the commentary, and once again, we're going into commentary and special features, but I think it's relevant here.
It's more interesting than talking about the movie in some ways.
So what he says at some point is he says, well, I'm a documentarian, and the original movie had lots of poorly framed shots and blurry shots and stuff like that. And that's not what documentaries do. And so he chose not to make it a found footage movie. But, you know, dickhead, the reason why the original movie was scary was because there were poorly framed shots and out-of-focus shots, because the characters were too scared to pay attention to their DOP training.
The cast was also your filmmakers, too, in that movie.
Yes.
They were told to go to certain areas, so when they find the creepy witch things hanging in the trees, the actors were actually seeing and reacting to that environment for the first time. So no, it wasn't crisply and perfectly shot, and no, it wasn't clean, and yes, they talk over top of each other, and yes, there's shaky camera. But it's creepy.
So, yeah, and you also mentioned that they took great pains to establishing the mythos of the Blair Witch.
Which this undoes.
Which it undoes by making the Blair Witch 2 Okay, how best to explain this? In Blair Witch 2, in their universe, the Blair Witch is just a movie. And the stuff that happened in the Blair Witch didn't really happen.
But the hysteria created by the Blair Witch phenomenon apparently creates some craziness.
Yes, and they go to Burkittsville, the site of the Blair Witch movie, and capitalize on the annoyance of the citizens at having Blair Witch seekers show up in their village, which is apparently is a real thing.
I believe it.
Yeah. But that's a huge disservice to the first movie. Saying that, oh, it wasn't real, didn't really happen. Let's just take a huge old fucking blood fart
all over the original.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating that they were okay with doing that. I mean, I'm sure the original filmmakers just got their check and walked away from it, right? But like, they released faux documentary specials on the Space Network leading up to the release of the Blair Witch Project on the history of the Blair Witch.
to make it more real.
To make it feel real to the people when they watched it. So they took such pains to establish this as a real history, to undo it in the first frames. I mean, right there, from when I read the screenplay, and I would be saying, no, we can't say the Blair Witch isn't real. That's stupid.
Start again.
Yeah.
That's what should have happened at so many points during this movie.
But okay, it didn't. This is the movie we got. This is not where the problems stop.
No. The next problem is that this is not a supernatural movie. This is a movie where Berlinger wanted to explore the idea that man was the monster and these crazy things that real people invented, like the witch trials, can overtake our psyches and make us do these horrible things to one another. But you know what? Explore that idea on your own time and
Make
leave
a pretentious documentary about it.
Yeah, leave our movie about the scary witch alone.
And he had all these lofty, big ideas on the statement he was going to make, and he spent no time on the characters. I don't remember any of their names, but they're fairly easily... There's the crazy guy, who we know has a history of being crazy. There's the goth chick, who has the pale makeup and the dark eyes and is very judgmental of how weird everyone else is.
And strangely, for a movie in which he tried to ground it in the real world, is psychic.
A psychic, yes, she does seem to have legitimate, that's right. That's one supernatural element that is legit. She seems to be legitimately psychic.
And unexplained.
And then unexplained. And then my least favorite, the Wiccan chick.
Okay.
There's another couple of journalists who are there too that we'll talk about. But
blah, 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 blah.
the goth chick and the Wicca lady, like... Their characters are appallingly written and appallingly acted, and I wanted them to die. And that's not...
Erica is the name of the Wicca chick, and she is the most annoying character. Every scene, practically, she has a line about, in the past, witches were unfairly persecuted by society.
So typical of these modern days,
Yeah.
always trying to burn witches.
And at the end of it, we really want her dead.
Yeah. Well, same thing with the goth chick. Like I say, both of them have their own little corners of the sandbox that they've made for themselves. And they look down at these small-town yokels like a bunch of stupid hayseeds. Look at them. They don't get it. They need to dress up in this goth costume or pretend that they're a witch. You just hate them so much so quickly.
But, it's through Erica that we also get this huge... It's a window into the small amount of research that was done on witchcraft and Wicca for this movie. We begin to understand that the creators knew absolutely nothing. The fact that this character is a Wiccan, okay, that is a 20th century religion, kind of based on pagan ideas of the past. But, okay, let's overlook that. The Blair Witch, during her lifetime, probably would have practiced something about as similar to Wicca as Scientology. Let's forget that, okay? But there is no ancient pagan alphabet. The word pagan, historically, was just a word used by monotheists to describe polytheists.
There you go.
And it's everywhere in Europe, everywhere in Asia. Those are all pagans. There is no ancient pagan alphabet, no ancient pagan culture, and the fact that they would suggest that there is ignorant.
Okay, how about this, brother? There is no Book of Shadows in this movie. It is not made reference to. We do not see it. We don't know it as a guidebook to the Wiccan mythology or whatever. Apparently it's a real book.
Yep.
But they took the trouble of naming the film Book of Shadows, Blair Witch 2.
There's no Book of Shadows.
And it is not referenced once.
Similarly, there's no heretic in Exorcist 2, the heretic.
Yes, that is true. These movies, they should get together and go bowling. Seriously. Wow. Okay, well, I'm going to try and say some of the plot. Should I?
Okay, yeah.
We're 10 minutes into this review. Okay. They're going to the site where they shot the fictional film of Blair Witch to do a Blair Witch tour. 2 of them are writing a book that they can sell to suckers. Then 2 of them, like I say, are just completely annoying, deluded, judgmental bitches. And then there's one guy who we know vaguely has a history of being crazy, and he's leading them. And so maybe we think he's the bad guy, since clearly, as they established in the first few seconds, there's no Blair Witch. God damn it, you guys. So they go off and they're having their little fun in the woods, and all of a sudden they wake up and they've trashed their tent. They've got weird symbols drawn on their bodies, and one of our characters has a fun for the whole family miscarriage, and they go back into town. Now you'd think after this traumatic experience, this is the point where everybody goes their separate ways and puts it behind them. No,
they stick around with
they
each
all
other.
go and hang out together in this big warehouse where the crazy dude lives. For no reason. For no reason. They just met each other the day before. Shit got really weird, and they stick around.
Well, there are all of these strangely intercut, spliced-in scenes of them being naked and killing people.
Yes, which apparently the director said in the commentary he did not want that in his film.
Exactly.
That was imposed on him by the studio.
The suits forced that on him.
Yes.
And, I can't say that they made the movie better or worse. They were just weird. But anyway, maybe that's what they were going for. They wanted to figure out what really happened that night.
Well, and that's the thing about this movie. We don't know, nor do we ever know, from the beginning of the film till when the credits roll, what actually happened. There's the stuff that the characters think happened, there's the stuff that we're shown, but which one of those things is the conclusive truth is left up to us.
Well, based on what Joe Berlinger said, I think probably
they all went crazy.
They
and
all
killed
went
each
crazy
other.
and killed each other. And
is what he wanted anyway. Mm-hmm. But you can interpret it however you want. It's that malleable and that stupid.
I did have to watch the director's commentary in order to come up with that theory. And honestly, if you haven't seen it, you're completely mystified by the end.
Yeah. I mean, you're happy it's over. But what does it mean? Why? Apparently there was plans of doing a prequel after this. They were going to do the history of the Blair Witch as an actual movie, and we get to see her origins and some of the terrible shit that happened.
I heard they're going to make another Blair Witch, actually 10 years later, after Blair Witch 2 fucked everything up.
Well, maybe they will. I mean, I think that would be a much more interesting movie. It's funny how many different and much more interesting options they had, and that they chose this script, this guy. Maybe Joe Berlinger is a genius, maybe, but he was the wrong guy to make Blair Witch 2. This is not his wheelhouse at all. And, maybe they figured the Blair Witch 1, since it was pretty much an amateur film made by a couple of nobodies, we'll just give it to someone who'll do it cheap and we'll make another $1 million. Yeah. But they fucked the dog so thoroughly on this movie that they effectively killed the Blair Witch franchise. Up until this point, there were people with Blair Witch tattoos. I was playing Blair Witch video games. I loved it. Loved it.
Yep.
And with one movie, it went from being cool to being stupid. And it took me a long time to sort of crawl back to the cozy, creepy comfort of the original and remember, yeah, it was a great movie, and it did deserve the hype.
Yep. Blair Witch 2 was poorly conceived, poorly planned, poorly written, and poorly executed. And I think, the actual last line of this movie applies very well here. When one of the characters says, "This tape is wrong. It's fucking bullshit."